Goeiemorgen, good morning, sawubona, bonjour, konnichiwa. Today I'm going to show you how to make a little pocket like this, a privacy pocket, a place where you can keep a few things private and yet is easy to find them. You don't have to turn over your entire handbag or project bag to find what is inside here. The idea of making a little bag or pouch with a granny square is not new. There are multiple patterns available, but in my extreme aversion to having to work in yarn ends, I spent some time trying to find a way that you can do the entire thing, leaving only one yarn end to work in at the end. This little pocket is not suitable for small items like coins because there are holes which will go through there, but it is very useful for something you don't want other people to see, maybe feminine hygiene products, or perhaps some tissues, or you can fold up your crochet patterns and keep them in there so you always have something ready. I have intended this as a quick project, which is why I'm using a variegated yarn in one continuous spiral, well, not spiral but rounds, so that there are no color changes as well, and it works up as quickly as possible. This one was made with a DK acrylic yarn and it's about 9.5 centimeters. It should be a kind of a square by 8.5. The granny squares are made so that the join occurs in the middle for every next square, so that when you are finished you can fold over these two sides, the yarn end being in the middle, and immediately start sewing in the ends using the same yarn tail to attach the button, so that when you're finished with the entire thing there was only one yarn end remaining at the end. To make this you need yarn. For this one I will be using Charity in the color 221 Frosted Pink. It is a DK acrylic yarn, a 4mm crochet hook, something with which to cut, a button to match your yarn, and a yarn needle to work in the ends. Because I do not want extra yarn ends to work in, I have chosen a yarn needle that will go through the eyes of the button but is still big enough for me to, with a little bit of force, get the yarn through the eye of the needle. In order to make this project, you will need to know how to make a magic ring, a chain stitch, a treble crochet, slip stitch, and a standing treble, and fasten off. If you don't know how to make the magic ring or any of the other skills I've mentioned, I have a tutorial available for that. Please note that when I crochet, I use UK terminology, but when I remember, I will mention the US equivalent, and of course, Afrikaans. With all the preliminaries out of the way, let's get going. We'll start with a magic ring. By default, I make my magic ring in a rather unusual way, but in my tutorial, I do show all the conventional ways as well. Into the magic ring, we will start with a standing treble. To make a standing treble, insert the hook into the loop, working over the yarn tail towards the left as well. Yarn over and draw up a loop. There are 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through both. Insert into the left leg of that stitch, yarn over and draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through both. That was the standing treble. Then make 2 chains. To make a chain stitch, yarn over and draw through the loop on the hook. 1 chain, 2 chains. Then make a treble crochet. To make a treble, yarn over, insert the hook into the magic ring, yarn over and draw up a loop so that you have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops remaining on the hook, and again yarn over and pull through 2. That was 1 treble. Continue to make 2 more treble crochets into the magic ring. 1 2. So far we have a standing treble, chain 2 and 3 trebles. Now 2 more times of chain 2, 1, 2 and 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3. That was the second repetition. When the yarn end here, the yarn tail here gets too small, then pull on it. It will tighten the ring a little bit, but make sure that you can keep on working over it. Don't let it disappear. So repeat that again. Chain 2, 1, 2 and 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3. Then chain 2 again and make only 2 more trebles, since the standing treble will count as the start. 1. Before I'm making the last treble, I'm going to pull the yarn end so that the center of the magic ring is quite tight. Yarn over, insert in there, and as I'm working, I'm going to work away this yarn end. Just weaving it up towards the level of the work. Then join with a slip stitch into this top of the standing treble. Insert underneath both loops, yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. That was the end of round 1. Oops. That was the end of round 1. So we have a small little square. For round 2, we will slip stitch forwards until we reach this chain space. And I'm going to keep on working over that yarn end so I don't have to work it in towards the end. There, we're into the chain space. Now we will make a standing treble, then 2 more trebles, 2 chain and 3 more trebles, all into this one chain space. Standing treble, still working this yarn end in as we go. Standing treble is done. 2 more trebles. If it confuses you to work the yarn end in at the same time, you can do that later, but I don't want to have any yarn tails remaining. 1 treble. 2 trebles. So we have a total of 3 treble crochets at the moment, including the standing treble. Then chain 2 and 3 more trebles into the same space. 1, 2, 3. Now skip these 3 trebles and into the next chain space. Again work 3 treble, chain 2 and 3 treble. 3 treble, 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2 and again 3 trebles into the same space. You might need to move up these trebles so that you can still see where you're working into the chain space. 1, 2, 3. Again, skip the 3 trebles and into the next chain space, work 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. 1, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, move up the stitches so you have space to work, and 3 treble. 1, 2, 3, and once again skip the 3 trebles in between and into this next space work 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. 1, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble. 1, 2, 3. Skip these 3 treble and into the top of the standing treble, slip stitch to close the round. End of round 2. For round 3, we start by slip stitching backwards into this space between the clusters of 3. So there's a group of 3 trebles and there's a group of 3 trebles. We want to work from the space in between them. So we slip stitch backwards, yarn in, draw up a loop, and there we are, in the gap between the 2 3 treble groups. Start with a standing treble, and make 2 more trebles into the same gap. 1, 2. Skip these 3 trebles and into the corner space work 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble again. 3 treble, 1, 2, 3, then chain 2, and into the same space 3 more treble. 1, oops, 2, 3. Skip the 3 trebles and into this gap here between the treble clusters make 3 more treble crochets. 1, 2, 3. Into the corner space, skip the 3 trebles and into the corner space 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, scoot up, and 3 trebles again. 1, 2, 3. Skip the 3 trebles and into the gap between the 2 clusters 3 treble crochets. 1, 2, 3. Again, skip the 3 trebles and into the corner space work 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. 1, don't split, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble, 1, 2, 3. Skip the 3 trebles and into the gap between clusters, make 3 treble crochets again, 1, 2, 3. Again, skip the 3 trebles and into the corner space, 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble, 1, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble, 1, 2, 3. Then into the top of the standing treble, join with a slip stitch, and that is the end of round 3. For round 4, once again we will slip stitch backwards into this space between clusters, so that we can starting to work from there. For round 4, we start with a standing treble into this group, into this gap, sorry. Skip these 3 trebles and make 3 trebles into this gap between clusters. 1, 2, 3. Then skip these 3 trebles again and into this corner space, the familiar 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. 1, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble, 1, 2, 3, oops, 3. For the rest of round 4, along each side, skip the 3 treble clusters and into the gaps between clusters, work 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, skip the 3 into the gap, 3 more, 1, 2, 3, skip the 3 and into the corner space, make 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble, 1, 2, 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble, 2 and 3. Continue this for the rest of the round. In every gap between clusters, work 3 treble, and in every corner space, 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble, all the way until we get back close to here where we started, and I'll see you there. I have just worked the last corner space with 3 treble, chain 2, and 3 treble. Then we will skip the 3 trebles and into this gap between clusters where we have started with the standing treble, we will make 2 more trebles. 1, 2, so that this also has 3 trebles, and join into the top of the standing treble. Doesn't help to be in a hurry, with a slip stitch, thus completing the end of round 4. For round 5, we will now slip stitch forward into the next gap to remain in the middle of the granny square side, and again start this with a standing treble and 2 more trebles into the same gap. Bringing the total number of trebles for that gap already onto 3, and then we will do the same as for the previous round. In each gap between clusters, 3 treble, and in each corner space, 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble. I'll get started with you. Skip these 3 into the gap, 3 treble, 1, 2, 3, and into the corner space, 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, and 3 trebles again. 1, 2, 3. Continue working this all the way around until we get to the end of the round, and I will join you there. I'm at the end of round 5, having completed all around 3 trebles between the clusters and 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble into every corner. There, I've just finished the last one. All that's left is in the standing treble where we started the round. Underneath both loops of the stitch, join with a slip stitch to make a continuous round. And that is the end of round 5. For round 6, again we slip stitch backwards to get into this gap between treble clusters, and then we will start by making a standing treble, skip these 3 trebles and working 3 treble in between the treble clusters, 1, 2, 3, skip the trebles, 3 treble between the clusters, all the same as we've been doing, and in the corner space, 3 treble, chain 2, 3 treble, 1, 2, 3, chain 2, 3 treble. For me, round 6 will be the last round I'm making. That will end up giving a pocket of this size. If you wanted to make one larger, then you can make more rounds in the granny. If you wanted to make it smaller, you can make less rounds. Also, if you wanted to make it a little bit bigger or smaller, you can also change the hook size. If you use a 3 or 3.5 mil instead of a 4 mil, 3.5 millimeter instead of a 4 millimeter hook, then it will be slightly smaller. Likewise, if you use a 4.5 or a 5, it will be slightly bigger. And of course, you can even go to a different yarn weight. If you use 4-ply yarn with a smaller hook size, or chunky yarn with a bigger hook size, that definitely will also impact the size of the final product. If you make more rounds, then as rows 5 and 6, 1 forward, 1 backward. Let me re-say that. If you make more rounds, then continue as we have been doing in rows 5 and 6. where in all the odd numbered rows onwards you will slip stitch forwards and start with a standing treble as well as 2 trebles in the first gap, and all the even number rows going forward you will slip stitch backwards to the previous gap and start with only a standing treble, completing the other 2 trebles for that gap when you have finished the entire round. If that's confusing, just keep following round 4, no, not 4. Keep following round 5 and 6 instructions, only there will be more clusters to work in the side. I will finish round 6 and join you when I'm done. I'm almost at the end of round 6. There is the standing treble where we've started the round. There still needs to go 2 more trebles into this gap. And then into the top of the standing treble, underneath. Underneath both loops, a slip stitch. That is the end of round 6. We will now slip stitch forwards so that we are again in this, right in this gap between the clusters. Then chain 1, and let's just have a look at it. The side that is facing us now is the right side, and so we will keep the right side facing, flip it over and fold up those 2. So there's where we've ended. We will now continue working slip stitches to join those 2 sides, then fold that over and work slip stitches to join those 2 sides as well. So to do that, after the chain 1, we will fold it, and then we will only be using what appears to be the back loop of this one, and when it was unfolded, the back loop of that one. After they're folded, it's easier to refer to them as the inside loop of this stitch and the inside loop of that stitch. We will crochet them together. The inside loop of this stitch and the inside loop of that stitch. Make sure that your yarn stays below the hook and doesn't go all over the place, because then it will make visible loops. So insert the hook into this back loop of this stitch and the back loop of that stitch. This will be the first stitch of this cluster as well as the first stitch of that cluster. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook, creating a slip stitch. This is what we will do for the whole length of the side. Insert into the inner loops of both stitches, yarn over and pull through all 3. 1 loop from this edge, 1 loop from that edge, yarn over, pull through all. If you have a different joining method that you prefer, of course you are very welcome to use that, but as I have mentioned multiple times already, my absolute aim was for this to be a quick project with no yarn ends to weave in. And I know there are And I know that there are a number of other ways to take care of yarn ends, making magic knots for your color changes and so forth. But that still takes more time than just working straightforward from beginning to end. We're now over here in the corner where there were 2 chains. So we will use 1 loop of each chain. And then stop. Then chain 1 and choose any other, whether you use those 2 together or those 2 together, doesn't matter. Now we will use the loop of this chain that we have not used yet and find the corresponding chain before the trebles. In the opposite corner, pull through all, continue working slip stitches. So this will be the first treble and the first treble. One slip stitch for each pair of trebles, working 2 adjacent sides together. As you get close to the corner, it might become a bit tricky to find your last few stitches. Last slip stitch, then we will fasten off, leaving a very long tail end. And by very long, I mean like 20 centimeters. To fasten off, I have made 2 chain stitches there and then pull tight. Draw this yarn to the back side of the work. I just stick the hook in there, right in the corner where we've been working, and pull it through to the back. Which of course fails when I'm trying to do it on camera. Try again. I just stick the hook into that last place where we've been working and pull the yarn towards the back. This will be easier to make the whole thing inside out. So we're now working on the inside of the pocket. Thread your very long yarn tail through the yarn needle and then we will weave this going through or underneath both legs of a few stitches until we're about halfway through. I like to make another knot here. Yes, I make lots of knots because because I do not want my work to become undone. And then continue weaving this in until we reach this gap. Now, when we're here at the apex where everything has started, bring the needle back to the front, making sure it's quite in the middle and that your pocket is right side out again, and then using the same yarn, the same needle, attach the button. I attach the button right there at the edge where all the points come together, which means when it closes, there's not much of an overlap here. If you wanted to, you could bring the button down lower, which will cause more of an overlap here when it closes, but I don't like the chunky corners that it creates, and so attach the button, right there. Okay, I'll sew in the button a little bit more, making sure it stays there. If you prefer to sew on the button with a regular thread and regular sewing thread and sewing needle, you are welcome to do so, because you can't work too many strands of double knit wool through a button. And maybe this was one too many. It's halfway through. I'll get it there. With the button secured, it's now time to secure this yarn tail in the back, which I again do by weaving it under a few stitches. Secure with a knot again. If you want to see this knot in more detail, there is a video about how to fasten off. And then weave in a few times more, forwards and backwards, splitting the yarn every now and then. And that is the only yarn tail we needed to work in. And there we have it. This chain 2 at the corner of the granny square will act as buttonhole. And there you have it. A quick and easy project. And so until next time, have fun crafting.